Hello and welcome to the setting up video for the CSS crash course. Pretty simple. We're going to set up our project, so it's going to have a HTML file and a CSS file that we will be using throughout this series. So make sure you have some sort of a text editor. If you have a personal favorite, fantastic. If you don't, I recommend Sublime Text. It is free and it is fantastic. It has been my favorite text editor for a very long time now. Brackets is also another good one. I would say if you're doing like a serious big project, Brackets is probably the way to go. It just offers a few more features, more plugin variety. But Sublime is just a great way of opening files quickly and just doing a bit of editing. But like I said, you might have your own preference. So if you do, just get a hold of whatever text editor you want. And look, I didn't mention, Brackets is also free and it's actually made by Adobe, which is good as well. So I'm just going to open up my CSS tutorial folder. I've got nothing in here. First of all, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it index.html. So index.html. If you haven't seen our HTML crash course series, go and check that out. I would recommend that before you do this series, because we're not going to be covering like what HTML is for the most part in this series. It's just going to be a given that you have basic HTML understanding. You don't need to be an expert, just some basic knowledge on HTML will suffice. So let's just quickly whip up a website. So doc type HTML tags. So here we're going to put a head tag, and now we're going to do a body tag. Let's just do the skeleton first, and now let's start filling out some of its organs. So that's the title, and for the title I'm going to put CSS tutorial. I'm going to put leave that blank for now. I'm going to put in the body, I'm going to start it off with a div tag, and I'm going to start it off with, before I do any of that, let's just put some text in here. So I'm going to put hello world, and I'm going to put a break line, new line, put another div. Inside here I'm going to just put the text another div, save that. So let's open up our file, and so this is our web page at the moment. I'm gonna show you the three main ways of styling. I'm not gonna talk about really the styling method we're going to be using, aka the property and the identifier. I'm just going to show you the three ways of applying styling. The first way is inline styling, and to do that you go into any element that you want, and on the opening tag you go and put the style attribute equals quotation marks, and inside here you put the property that you want to modify. So I'm going to put color red, which just modify the text color, but don't worry about understanding the properties in this video, because we're going to be covering all the different properties that you'll be using in separate videos. Sorry, the quotation mark should close after the entire property. I don't know why that happened, or it must have been my mistake. I doubt Sublime just did it. Let's refresh. So it's red, fantastic. Another way, actually, let me mention another thing. Inline styling is not recommended for any serious development. It just isn't adaptable very well. It's unique to one element and it just doesn't look very nice. So stay away from inline styling as much as possible throughout this series. I will be actually doing quite a lot of inline styling. That is just to illustrate what I'm doing, because it's a lot easier when you're testing stuff out and just teaching. But as a serious developer, do not use inline styling. I'll show you the ideal method. The next method I'm going to show you is using a style tag inside of the head tag. So you put style like so, and inside here you simply put your CSS. You can't just put color :red, because this style property knows it's affecting this element. So what you need to do is identify the element or elements that you're affecting, then apply the property. So I'm going to put div, so this affects every single div, and I'm going to put a background color of yellow. You might have seen that it was automatically giving me recommendations. That is the properties of a good text editor. That's what Sublime does, and other text editors do that as well. So having a good text editor really does help learning and just in development in general. So let's go back, refresh. It's now yellow. Let's just, actually you might be wondering why is, let me just minimize this, why is the background all the way to the right, pretty much bar a little bit of padding here. And the simple reason is, actually margin technically, the simple reason is it's a block level element which covers the width of the parent element. Simple as that. For this mention that in case you was wondering, this method is recommended more than the inline styling method, but the best method to use is a separate CSS file. So what we're going to do is create a folder inside our main folder called CSS. You can call it whatever you want. There's no rules about what you call it. The general standard is to call it CSS. Then in here, create a file. You can call this whatever you want, and I'm just going to call it index.css. So if I put index.css, yeah, here's another great thing about Sublime or another good quality programming text editor. It will detect what sort of file you've got open and set the highlighting to HTML, CSS, PHP, JavaScript, etc. So in here, we can now apply some styling. The rules for the CSS file is essentially the same as a style tag in that you can't just put a property, you need to put the element or elements that you want to modify and then the property itself. So what you do, you don't need to put a style tag because all you would put in here is style code. So we can just immediately put body, and body just refers to this element here, which is essentially the entire web page. I want to put a background color of black, save that, go to the web browser, refresh, and it's not working. And you might be thinking, oh, why isn't it working? You might even go to the developer console, like so. If you've watched the HTML tutorials, I showed this, and you might be like, there's nothing there. And the reason it's not working is because it doesn't automatically know that you should include a CSS file, no matter what you name it, or no matter where you put it. Unless you link it up, it won't use it. Linking it, thankfully, is very, very simple. All you do is put a link tag. This is a void element in that it doesn't have a specific closing tag because it doesn't have any content in between it. Put link rel, which is the relationship, and the relationship of this file is going to be a style sheet. Then you put href, which refers to the path of our CSS file. So for us, it's css/index.css, but this could be hosted on a separate website, and you could just put the URL to that file if you wanted to. Save that, and if I go back to my web browser, refresh, and as you can see, the background is now black. So those are the three methods. Inline styling, not recommended, only recommended for testing and just quickly doing some styling, but do not use it as a main styling method. Then there's the style tags. I'll recommend it more than inline styling, but preferably you want to be using a separate file. And just to mention, you can use multiple CSS files. So if you have a very big website, it is very common to have several CSS files to be able to say, okay, this is for the main part, maybe this is for the footer, maybe this is for the header. Instead of trawling through thousands or even tens of thousands of lines of code, you can just sort of bunch up into a couple of hundred or 200, 300 lines of code into different files. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to do a comment in CSS. You do / */ and anything in between here is not well used. That's essentially probably the best way to put it. So hello world. Comments are used to explain your code. You might be thinking, well, I can sort of see what it does. It affects the background color, changes it to black for the body. And for this, it's simple. But when you have hundreds or thousands of lines of code and the code becomes more complex, it's harder to understand it. You might even be saying, well, if nobody else is ever going to read it, why would I ever want to do something like this? And the simple Reason is, though others may not read it, you may come back a week later or a month later, and trust me, this will happen in your development career. You might look at it and think, what the hell? So ideally, comment the code if it's not exactly obvious, or if you're doing some trickery with it, so you or another developer can understand exactly what is going on it at a later date. So that's it for setting up CSS. There will be several more videos in this series. If you have any question whatsoever, feel free to post it on my education platform, sonarlearning.co.uk. There will be a link in the description to, well, actually won't be a link, it'll be just a resource that will be added to the source code from this video and the source code from every other video in this series. If you liked the video, please let us know. And as usual, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.